So now we come to one of the most misunderstood concepts of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, and that is the concept of self realization. A majority of people do not understand what this word means, self realization, because this seems like a contradiction. On one end, we talk of the self, and then we say that the self does not exist. But if the self does not exist, then who is to do the sadhana? Who is going to realize the eternal self? And there is no easy answer to this because words cannot do justice to this. You see, the word self realization is itself wrong because there is actually no self to realize. The moment you think of a self as an object, the moment you objectify the source, the eternal self, it is no more the self. Then it has just become an object of attainment, an object of desire in your imagination. So the mind has reduced something which is infinite to something which is finite. So it is very difficult to understand this concept intellectually. But if the mind is completely silent, a mind that a mind where surrender has happened, a mind that knows that it is not the doer, a mind that knows that all movement is futile, such a mind suspends all action. Such a mind remains rooted in the bliss of the eternal self or the being. And the self is made up of knowing. So, self does not need to realize anything. So, it is the small self, the I, which comes to this conclusion that no expansion is going to help. And that is when the I thought becomes still. It suspends movement. And when it does not move, it introverts on itself. This may come across as a question, who am I? But there is no answer to that question. That question dissolves the I. It shows the I its illusory nature. Someone asked Bhagwan that if I is an illusion, then who casts off that illusion? Now, some teachers would say that the I comes from the source. Like Ramesh Balsekar would say that the I, the ego, the mind comes from the source. Bhagwan said that the I itself casts off this illusion of I, and yet it remains the I. It can never be not I. I don't know if this makes sense. Once the reality of being, which is the ground of all happening, is seen, this becomes clear, crystal clear. There's no doubt, there's no confusion about this. The being, which is eternal, that is why, in the scriptures we say Sat Chit Anand, being, consciousness, bliss. The eternal being is consciousness, consciousness is bliss. So, the realization of the pure being ends the triad of the knower, the knowledge, and the knowing. So, this triad of knower, knowledge, and knowing is a part of the appearances, where the illusory ego springs up, believing itself to be the doer of actions, believing that it has to solve the problem of enlightenment or self realization or moksha or freedom or nirvana, whatever fancy name you want to give, you can give that. But the fact is that it is all the eternal self. Every movement is the eternal self. In fact, the whole movement is an illusion, because movement cannot be known without stillness. So you see, when the eye introverts on itself and there is no place for it to expand, what happens is that it begins to fade. And when it fades, it merges into nothingness. And that nothingness is everything. There is no difference between nothingness and infinity. It is one and the same. Shunya is Ananta. Again, it is very difficult to explain this intellectually. And you see, this is the paradox of self realization, as Bhagwan said. I will read his words. He says, in a sense, speaking of self realization is a delusion. It is only because people have been under the delusion that the non self is the self. Now, when he says non self, he is referring to non self, self with the capital S, which means the eternal self. He is not talking about the small self, which is the person. So he says it is only because people have been under the delusion that the non self is the self and the unreal the real, that they have to be weaned out of it by the other delusion called self realization. The ego makes the effort, the ego does the sadhana, the ego does everything, sometimes years, decades of sadhana, only to come to a realization that it is an illusion. It only wakes up to it being an illusion. That is the cosmic joke. No matter what you do, which method you adopt, which teaching you follow, eventually you come to the conclusion that you are not and God is all there is. The pure eternal self is all there is. And this is what Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi is saying here. He says, because actually the self always is the self and there is no such thing as realizing it. Who is there to realize what? How and when all that exists is the self and nothing but the self. A majority of us get so identified with the contents of the world, with what is happening, that identification brings up this illusion of separate existence, of individualistic existence. And a majority of time, our actions are such that we keep on strengthening this sense of individuality. We fight wars, we form groups, we form organizations, we come up with different ideas to do this, to do that. We talk about peace, we create wars and things of those nature. They all strengthen this sense of individualistic existence, the sense of personal identification. And that becomes the root of our suffering because it is a mirage. Now, say, for example, if you experience a feeling, an intense feeling like anxiety, now I tell you, tell me where is the center of that anxiety? Where is it inside yourself that you are feeling it? Now, you may tell me a location that I'm feeling it in my throat or I'm feeling it in my belly, but that is a small local region in the physical body where you're feeling the sensation. I'm asking you, who is the originator of this sensation? Where is it originating from? Now, when you try to find where is it originating from and to whom is it, appearing, to whom is it affecting, that is when you don't find an answer. Because there is actually no one to whom it is happening. It is just a happening. You know, it's just like when you see a mirage in a desert or on a road in summers. What creates the mirage is the distance from the road. When the separation is large, when the distance is large, the mirage appears. And the moment mirage appears, the desire appears to quench your thirst. So you run towards the mirage, thinking that water is here, and once I drink the water, my thirst will be quenched. But the moment you reach closer, it vanishes. This is what the I thought is also like. It is only a thought, a conceptual thought appearing in consciousness. What you are is the pure consciousness, the eternal self. The moment you try to look at this I, it vanishes. Very sneaky it is. The moment you try to pinpoint it, the moment you try to correct it, it changes. Now, the story of our life is something like this, that we have been told a lot of concepts about enlightenment, about perseverance. But you see, they all strengthen the ego's idea of the personal self. I did sadhana, I did so much, I did this, I did that, therefore I attained this, I attained that. It is all about attainment and growing that sense of individualistic existence. Now, if this mechanism is seen, not seen personally, if this mechanism of the way the ego operates is witnessed, then that itself is the dissolution of the ego mind. That itself brings a lot of peace, a lot of freedom that one truly desires. But till we have objectified the self, the pure self, and made it into an object of our fantasy, we will continue to struggle. We will continue to suffer because the object of imagination is a mirage. The moment you try to touch it, reach it and touch it, grab it, hold it, it will be gone. And then there will be disappointment, anguish, bitterness. Then there will be bitterness with God as to why the God does not help me, why the God is not giving me the freedom, why is not God giving me enlightenment. The me itself is an imagined entity. There is only God. The me itself is only a conceptual thought. Once this is seen, that itself brings about an acceptance of the cycle of pleasure and pain in life. then the quest for realizing the self goes away. And that itself is self realization. It is not that you are going to wake up to a great dimension, a very, something unimaginable and beautiful and blissful. No, nothing of that sort. Well, there are a lot of gurus out there who promise that kind of a thing, that you will wake up to infinite dimensions and you will see and taste the bliss. The nectars that the gurus talk about is the being. That is the amrit, that is the nectar. Once you have tasted it, you cannot forget its taste. Just like you cannot forget the taste of salt or the taste of sugar. Once you have tasted it, the taste is imprinted in your memory forever. Similarly, the taste of the being of the taste of the bliss of the being of the eternal self, once seen, it cannot be unseen. And that seeing itself brings about an end to all conflict, to all confusion. So the individual entity does not have to do anything other than to surrender to what is. That is the unaltered flow of life. Surrender to what is acceptance of the situation the way it is right now. And there itself you will discover God. Before the first thought comes up, God is before that. It is prior to that. It is much more closer to you than you imagine. Because imagination is a function, it is a movement, and God is stillness. And the movement springs only from the stillness. Therefore, stillness is your true nature. Stillness is the God consciousness that operates in you as the being. These are not just words. As I said, try it. Try to see all your feelings, all your thoughts, all your emotions. Do this practically. And try to see where they are originating from and whom they are affecting. You will say they are affecting me. Who is this me? This me is a collection of memories. It's a collection of imprints. It's a product of conditioning. The conditioning which keeps changing. Therefore, me keeps changing. Therefore, the me, the I thought, cannot itself be the reality. It is the nature of I thought to expand. Expansion is the illusion, and yet it remains the I. I hope I made some sense. And if I did not do justice to this, to the teachings of Bhagwan, please do forgive me. I wish you all peace.